travel thousands of miles, crossing oceans and continents, just to visit me in Omaha. They walk into my office with bated breath, fully expecting to see a secret, high-tech command center. They expect to find rows of humming supercomputers, flickering Bloomberg terminals, complex algorithms predicting every microscopic market movement, and a room packed with Wall Street mathematical geniuses screaming over telephones. But when they open the door, they are almost always disappointed. Instead of the financial matrix, they imagine they see an old man sitting at a simple wooden desk, reading a book in absolute silence. They are desperately looking for a complicated secret formula, a hidden code accessible only to the financial elite. But the brutal truth is that the secret to winning the game of life and capital has absolutely nothing to do with computational power or insider information. It lies entirely within the operating system of your mind. Today, we are going to break down the 5 fundamental laws of physics that govern wealth. These are the laws that separate the apex predators who build multi-generational empires from the masses who spend their entire lives running on a financial treadmill, exhausted and broke. Let us start by dismantling the most overrated asset in the modern capitalist economy: intelligence. Look around your life right now. You undoubtedly know people whose IQ is enviable. They were brilliant in school, they can solve complex differential equations in their heads, and they can quote philosophers from memory. Yet they live paycheck to paycheck. They are drowning in consumer debt, and they spend their days working for people who are intellectually far inferior to them. Why does this happen? I want you to imagine your brain as an automobile engine. You might have been born with a 400 horsepower engine. That is your raw biological intelligence. But if your steering wheel is broken, if your car is driving blind at 200 miles per hour, that massive horsepower will only lead you to a catastrophic crash much faster than a slow car. In the ruthless world of finance, that steering wheel is called emotional discipline. Most people, regardless of their education, have absolutely no idea how to steer their horsepower. When the market drops by 20%, when the media starts screaming about an impending economic collapse, and when panic sets in, their 400 horsepower engine goes to work, finding 1,000 brilliant, highly logical, and mathematically sound reasons to be absolutely terrified. They sell their assets at the absolute bottom of the market because their immense intellect rationalizes their biological fear. A person with a basic 200 horsepower engine but a steady, unbreakable grip on the steering wheel will mathematically always outperform a genius who cannot control their emotional impulses. We saw this in the late 90s with long-term capital management, a hedge fund run by actual Nobel laureates in economics. They were the smartest men in the room with the most complex models ever created, and they blew up the financial system because they lacked the emotional discipline to understand risk. The stock market is not an IQ test. It is a highly efficient, unsentimental mechanism for transferring wealth from the impatient to the patient. You must learn to govern your engine, to build a psychological fortress against the madness of the crowd, or your own intellect will become your greatest financial liability. The second concept is what I call the ultimate economic moat. It is the concept of unshakable integrity and trust. When I hire people to run the subsidiaries of Berkshire Hathaway, a company that allocates hundreds of billions of dollars across the globe, I look for exactly 3 qualities. I look for intelligence, I look for extreme energy, and I look for integrity. But here's the brutal, unforgiving reality of human nature. If a person lacks that third quality, the first two will absolutely kill you. Imagine hiring a brilliantly smart and incredibly energetic person who possesses no moral compass. You have not hired an employee. You have invited a highly efficient Trojan horse into your fortress. Their boundless energy and sharp intelligence will be weaponized to find hidden loopholes in your system, to deceive your clients, and to ultimately destroy what took you decades of blood and sweat to build. If a person is fundamentally dishonest, it is actually in your best economic interest that they are also stupid and lazy. In the modern world, where every single transaction is digitized, recorded, and visible, integrity is no longer just a soft moral category discussed in churches. It has become the highest form of cold, hard economic efficiency. When you operate with absolute, uncompromising honesty, you eliminate what physicists call the force of friction. You do not need to spend millions of dollars on armies of corporate lawyers. You do not need to audit every single contract with a magnifying glass. And you do not need to constantly look over your shoulder. Your reputational capital begins to compound just like your financial capital. I use a mental framework called the morning newspaper test. Before you execute any trade, say any word to a competitor, or sign any binding document, I want you to imagine that tomorrow morning a detailed, highly accurate report of your actions will be published on the front page of your country's most prominent newspaper, and imagine that this article will be read at the breakfast table by your spouse, your children, your friends, and your neighbors. If the mere thought of that exposure causes you even a microscopic fraction of discomfort, you must abandon the action immediately. Reputation is the most fragile asset in the universe. You can spend 20 years building it, laying down your good name brick by brick, and it takes exactly 5 minutes of stupidity, greed, or moral compromise to pulverize it into dust. And the most terrifying part of this equation is that once that vase is shattered, you can never put the pieces back together perfectly. The cracks will always show. The third law is the law of radical isolation and focus. The modern ego demands that you act as an expert on absolutely everything. The social media algorithms program you to feel inadequate if you do not hold a strong vocal opinion on every macroeconomic crisis, every geopolitical shift, and every new technological trend, from artificial intelligence to cryptocurrency. This is a behavioral trap designed specifically to drain your cognitive bandwidth. On my physical desk, there is an invisible box labeled "Too Hard." 99% of all investment opportunities, all new revolutionary startups, and all complex financial derivatives go straight into that box. Thomas Watson, the legendary founder of IBM, once delivered a profound insight that changed how I view the world. He said he was not a genius, but he was smart in spots, and he simply stayed around those spots. This is the fundamental concept of your circle of competence. It does not matter how large or small that circle is. You could be a master of only how local car washes operate, or you could only understand the economics of regional brick manufacturing. The size of the circle is irrelevant. The only thing that dictates your survival and your wealth is how clearly you define the perimeter of that circle and how fiercely you refuse to cross it. Inside that circle, you are an apex predator. You understand the variables, the risks, and the cash flows better than anyone else on earth. But the exact moment you step outside that line, driven by greed, ego, or the fear of missing out because your neighbor made money on a stock you do not understand, you become the prey. The market will slaughter you. In investing, unlike the game of baseball, there are no umpires calling strikes. The market can throw thousands of different pitches at you every single day. You do not have to swing at everyone to win. You can stand at the plate with the bat resting on your shoulder for years, watching other people make temporary fortunes on things you do not comprehend. Your job is to ignore the screaming crowd, tune out the financial media, and wait with monk-like patience for that one perfect fat pitch that lands dead center in your circle of competence. And when it finally appears, you must swing with absolute, concentrated, and unapologetic aggression. The fourth law flows directly from this discipline. It is the law of radical subtraction. The working masses believe that the path to extreme wealth is an equation of addition. They think they need to launch 3 side businesses, learn 5 new programming languages, and attend 10 networking events a week to get ahead. This is the grand illusion of productivity, which is actually just the monetization of busyness. I once asked my personal pilot, Mike Flint, to write down a comprehensive list of his 25 primary life and career goals. Once he had the list written out, I asked him to carefully review it and circle his top 5 absolute non-negotiable priorities. When he finished, he told me he would dedicate his main focus to the top 5 and slowly chip away at the other 20 in his spare time. I looked at him and told him he had completely misunderstood the mathematics of success. Those 20 secondary goals are not your backup plan. They are now your greatest enemy. They are your avoid at all costs list. Blatantly terrible ideas pose no actual threat to you because you naturally avoid them without effort. The true insidious danger lies in the good ideas, the projects that are just interesting enough to consume a month of your cognitive energy, but not monumental enough to alter your financial destiny. Those 20 secondary goals will siphon your focus, fracture your energy, and prevent you from achieving the escape velocity required to master the 5 things that actually matter. You must become a ruthless, cold-blooded assassin of your own good ideas. You must learn to say no to 99% of the opportunities, invitations, and distractions that come your way, preserving your mental capital entirely for the 1% that offers an asymmetric return. Fire is only created when you focus the entire scattered power of the sun onto one single tiny dot using a magnifying glass. If you spread your energy, you just get warm. If you focus it, you start a fire. Finally, we arrive at the ultimate audit of your existence, which I call the rocking chair test. We have discussed intelligence, we have discussed focus, we have discussed emotional discipline, and we have discussed the mechanics of compounding capital. But ultimately, this entire game of life boils down to what remains when the clock inevitably runs out. I want you to project yourself into the future. Imagine you are 90 years old. You're sitting in a rocking chair on the porch of your house. Your biological engine can no longer operate like it used to. You can no longer build businesses. You can no longer negotiate hostile takeovers. You can no longer outwork your competition. You can only look backward at the tapestry of your life. What will be your greatest regret? I guarantee you, you will not regret failing to upgrade your luxury car in your 30s. You will not regret missing a corporate cocktail party, and you will not regret missing out on a promotion to senior vice president at a company that would replace you in a week if you died. You will think entirely about how you allocated your most irreplaceable depreciating asset, your time. You will think about whether you built an impenetrable fortress of trust, loyalty, and love with your family, or if you burned every human bridge to extract a marginal, meaningless dollar to add to your bank account. Money is a magnificent, powerful tool. It completely removes the crushing stress of basic survival. It buys you dignity, and it gives you the ultimate luxury of choosing how you spend your day. But money has hard physical limits. It cannot buy the one thing that actually matters in the end. You can buy a sprawling mansion, you can buy a fleet of private yachts, and you can easily buy the fake, sycophantic respect of a crowd that wants your money. But you cannot write a check for $1 million or even $1 billion and purchase a single genuine ounce of human affection. The only mathematically viable way to get love in this world is to be a person who is fundamentally lovable. The ultimate metric of your success in this life is incredibly simple, and it cannot be faked. If you reach my age and the people who you genuinely hope love you actually do love you, then you have won the game. If you have $1 billion sitting in a brokerage account but your children refuse to speak to you, your spouse resents you, and your colleagues despise you behind closed doors, your life has been a catastrophic, unmitigated failure. Do not wait until you are 90 to realize this math. Use your money to buy your freedom. Use your extreme focus to compound your capital. But never, ever forget that the true compound interest, the only yield that actually matters when the journey is over, does not accrue in a bank vault. It accrues in the hearts of the people you choose to protect, uplift, and love along the way. Your wealth is just the engine. Your humanity is the steering wheel. Drive carefully.